Today I welcome Shayan on the show. So first, thanks to having. Well, let's do it again. It's like it's like blah, blah, blah.
Keep up,
It's-
go with the flow, man.
yeah. Um, Today I welcome Shayan on the show. So first, thanks to have accepted my invitation.
No, thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Du coup, Shayan, yes, in French, of course. If you should resume your path in 3 minutes, how you will do that?
I'm a software engineer turned indie hacker. So, a quick background about me and like how I ended up being on this podcast is that I left my job last September. I left a full-time job to build a product of my own, and I started building a marketplace initially and switched to entirely different product, which ended up being a internal tool for that marketplace that I turned into an actual product of its own, which is Logsnag. And then I've been building it for the past year, pretty much. I started in January, launching late April, and now we're here. It's December. And Martin is one of the folks who reached out. I don't know how we ended up meeting, but I know maybe I found your product first because I use Capacitor to build my mobile app, and then Martin has a great sort of like he has an open source product and then his managed service on top of Capacitor, which solves a massive issue with sending updates to Apple to the App Store, as was Android Market. But they're much quicker in doing reviews. We'll get to these. But yeah, pretty much started building Logsnag and then met Martin, and he's been using the product
Yeah.
for the past few months. And we've been just chatting on Discord about like, hey, how can I make your life easier? And talking about Capacitor and a bunch of different stuff in this whole thing. So that's how we met, and that's how I'm here because of my product and just deciding to build a indie product in public on Twitter. So
Yeah.
that's pretty much a really it wasn't 3 minutes, but it was really
No,
short.
no, no. It was cool. It was cool. What you were doing before starting your first project? You were a software engineer, and what was your job? You were in big team. You were in startup.
No, I work for the government as a government contractor
Mm.
for about a year and a half. Worked on a bunch of different projects. Uh, I'm trying to see which ones I should and should not get into. I'll just talk about the stack.
Yeah.
So yeah, mainly used like Python and Go, and most of it was backend stuff. And back there, I started like picking up a little of front end to see like, hey, we need a dashboard for this, so let me just see how I can build a dashboard with React or Next. And that's how I started learning a little front end and build a couple of websites here and there. But the job was pretty much a small team. I was like a software engineer in a team of cybersecurity people.
Okay.
So it was a really interesting dynamic, but a really great team. Learned a lot back there, and then I was just looking for like doing more. You know what I'm saying? Like things move a little slowly back, like at jobs like that. And then I wanted to like explore different things, build stuff with much more creative control than I wanted. So that's where I like hit the what is the word for it? I sent in the mail. I was like, hey, I'm gonna be quitting by the end of this month. And at the time, I had no idea what I wanted to do.
Oh, that's interesting. You just wanted to quit and go to your own things, right?
Yeah, there was a couple of things that came up like at the job, mainly moving back to office and then doing. Again, I'm not sure how much of this I can share, but a couple of things came up, and it was like the best time to either switch jobs or just like leave entirely. You know, it was
Yeah.
like the period where teams were changing up, projects were changing up, and like you wanted to stay like till the end of a product or a project, so you have like completed most of the things that you're required to do. And then I was crazy enough to be like, hey, let me just go build some stuff and just went with it.
Yeah, yeah. We launched in the same time, by the way. I just realized that when you were presenting yourself, like in January this year. That's really
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
really? You launched in January?
The
So it's funny.
not the
Go
not
ahead.
the business part. The business part are launching in March, but the first open source tool was in January, the 13th of January.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So it's funny. the way it came to be was I was building that marketplace with a co-founder of mine, and I was just mainly like posting about it on Discord and Reddit because it was targeted towards a really small niche, which are pilots here in the US.
Okay.
So anyone who's either a pilot or who wants to become a pilot, we just build a marketplace to connect these folks together. And I didn't know anything about Twitter and this whole like build. Well, I knew about Twitter, of course, but not this like building
Not the
public
community,
community
yeah.
and like the indie hacker community. Yeah, so once I started to make that pivot around January or a little before January, that's where I was like, let me put up a landing page and see how it goes. I was mainly doing a little outreach on Reddit. I posted up the landing page there and I got a lot of people who were really interested in the product and they signed up on the wait list. But then I didn't post anything into Twitter till like maybe like the second week of January, I forgot. And then I had like 70 followers back then. And then it randomly got picked up by a couple of big accounts. And they either commented or retweeted a couple of them. And I was like, wow, this Twitter thing is really interesting. So let me just like keep on talking about this product as I build it. And that's how I got into like that whole
Yeah.
building public thing.
What make you pivot to the e-commerce platform to Logsnack? So you quit the previous project, right?
No, the project's still going.
Okay.
It's what I like to say. It's on autopilot, meaning like I don't really do much with it. It just works. It brings in traffic from Google
Okay.
because it's like basically designed on to work with SEO in terms of like market acquisition. So it brings a lot of traffic from SEO, and people just find other people that will create an account and then just reach out and do their thing. We're just pretty much a middleman, and we're not charging anything. But the main reason was it was growing pretty good. But then the thing was that I wasn't really interested in this market. I'm not a
Yeah.
pilot. I don't know much about it. And I feel like if I put the same amount of energy into something that I would be using myself, it would make it much easier to grow and find pain points and do things differently than how it's currently be done. Because like everything that I wanted to do for that marketplace would have required research. You know what I'm saying? I mean, everything
Yeah.
requires research, but for example, I didn't know how people did very trivial things that we know. Like I know how developers do things, right? So then I had to go and reach out to them, talk to them on Discord, and just interview like 5 people asking what they want.
Yeah, I
And it
have
got
the
to a point
same
that
as
was
you.
becoming
When
really
I'm building
problematic.
CapGo, there are no, I don't need to ask much people because I see the bugs myself or what I need. That's how I built it at the beginning. So I totally understand this point. And you have the same in Logsnack.
Yeah, pretty much that. Like just knowing or having a better experience with the target audience, or even being like, if you're a part at this point, I'd say like if you're a part of your own target audience, first of all, you know who to reach out, which is like a massive advantage, right? I have friends who would be kind of people who would be using the log snack right now, which I don't think I've even introduced, which is funny. But yeah, I know people who would be using this, and I'm a person who would be using the product, so I have a much better understanding of like who to target, what to provide to them, and how the thing should work versus like going into like something very blindly.
Yeah,
So that was like one of the main reasons, just trying to find something better. But then, um, how it started is that I built an internal version of Logsnack initially, and then it wasn't supposed to be a product of its own. It was just because I couldn't find an alternative while building the marketplace, and it helped us a lot. And I showed it to friends and like other developers that I knew. I was like, "Hey, this is how I am
handling the
tracking these events, and this is how like it helps me to do customer support and stuff like that." And they were like, "Oh, I can also use this in for my product, and this would help me or simplify this process that we have internally." So I saw something there that could have turned into its own product, and it had like some sort of traction from early on, like before I even had a public product
yeah.
to launch. So that's kind of like the second reason why I was like, okay, maybe this is a better route to go.
Yeah, it makes sense. I got a bit the same experience with CapGo, where it was a big issue on capacitor GitHub, and everyone was complaining about the not able to update the app easily and without paying a lot. And on this GitHub things, I was like, just maybe I will try to do it, and I didn't even say I will do it. Like I just say I'm trying because I'm annoyed too, and it's enough. And the people told me like, yeah, if you do it, we're gonna pay like straight, without asking anything. I was like, ooh, that smell good. That smell product market fit before doing anything. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. That's how I also found your I think I found it on GitHub. But yeah, like the capacitor solution to remote updates. What is the proper technical word for it? Is it push? Is it I think remote update, right?
Ionic use live update. For a moment, I have used instant update. There are hot code push update also. I don't know really the what name. What I use right now for SEO, it's
I
live
was
update. This is the best search one.
live update.
Yeah.
Like I wonder I was thinking of the term that Expo uses. Do you know which one they're using?
Uh,
I think remote push or something, right?
Let me check.
But don't worry about it. It's
No,
nothing
no, no,
important.
no. That's interesting because I'm using a lot Expo as an example because Ionic is targeting the high-end market, where Expo is targeting the same market as me, but for React Native. So I was curious. You make me curious. Develop, update. Hmm.
Yeah, I've only used it like just to set up a example project. That's why I don't recall it exactly, but I think it was something like remote push or something, or maybe that I've heard that in another context.
Yeah, I think update they call it that. Yeah, update. Yes, update. Instant update. Yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
that's why
fair
that's
enough.
why I was using this word also, because it was from the copy. That's definitely I've learned a lot from what they were doing, and use the same kind of wording and everything because
Yeah, that is important for like kind of going after that search market because if you like introduce your own unique words, no one's searching for it,
yeah.
and it's pointless. But yeah, no, I remember like I think you're also getting a lot of traffic from GitHub repositories or GitHub account because that's how I found it. I was looking for setting this up for myself, and the one that Capacitor offers is too expensive. I forgot what the pricing was, but it was like
2,500.
mainly targeted towards yeah, yeah, something that just didn't make sense for like indie
Yeah.
products. Like as a if I were like a big startup funded startup or even a enterprise, then that would be totally fine. But then as in like an indie product or a small product, that was just too expensive too. And for like a yeah, I don't know like if they're offering anything that justifies the cost or it's just that they put whatever price tag that they want on it. I'm not sure.
Mm, that's an interesting question. I have talked with them, and definitely they target the big corporate markets. So what they provide you, it's mostly having a salesperson who can answer to anything, and so you have your baby sisters if you need it, where which is not the case with me. I am helping, but I'm not your baby sister. And after, I think because they are alone on the market, that allow them to do a bigger price, but they don't do the live update alone. You know, they don't sell the live update alone. They sell it with the CI/CD they provide you. So the CI/CD is usually expensive for mobile apps. So I'm the in between two shares on this. They could definitely split it
Oh,
and give only the live update, but they don't want that. They told me.
okay, I see. So the CI/CD part is indeed
Yeah.
expensive. I learned this when I wanted to set up my CI/CD on GitHub
Yeah.
Actions for the Electron app, and building like a macOS container there is like 10 times the cost of a
Yeah.
normal I think Linux box, and then Windows is like 2 times, 5 times. I forgot what the number was, but there's like multiple. So like each build of mine ended up being like $3 to $5, I think. Like each time I wanted to build a desktop app for different platforms, um, it ended up being quite expensive. So
Yeah. If you do
if they're
that on
like
every
that's something they're
commit, yeah.
offering, yeah, yeah, no, you don't want to do that on every commit. at least if you're like trying to do a build on every commit, you should like kind of sim what is it, limited to a specific like build
Yeah,
target. Don't build for every like platform. Um, but yeah, I that makes sense. I didn't know they add the CI/CD, but then CI/CD for capacitors shouldn't be too. Is it too bad?
yeah, because you build not
Probably
you
because
build the
they're running
iOS.
Xcode,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Mm,
So you
yeah, that's fair.
it's definitely. I saw that with the Capgo. I have the CI/CD automatizer for iOS and Android, and I am using a lot of GitHub Action Minutes. Hopefully, I am open source, so it's free and unlimited. Weirdly,
Oh
yeah.
yeah,
But yeah, otherwise it's very costly. I've seen.
yeah. You have unlimited, which is awesome. For me, I remember like when I had a 3,000 limit minutes. Sorry, I had 3,000 minutes for I
Yeah,
don't know which plan I'm on. But the first 3,000 is free or something like that. And while I was setting up the CI/CD, because like it's funny, from what I've seen, most developers when they want to set up their CI/CD on GitHub, they just make like 2,000 commits and then just change a line until it works. At least like that's how I've
yeah.
seen. At least I haven't seen anyone do it in different ways. Just like, hey, it's failing here, so let me just go change the YAML file, push again, push again, push again until it's working. Same thing for me. Like when I was setting it up for the desktop app, I think I used like 3,000 build minutes in a few hours, like the first day, just setting it
Just
up. And I
setting
was
up.
like,
Yeah,
wow, this is going to cost me a lot of money. Yeah.
yeah. No, no. CI/CD is very complex. I'm very happy to do open source, and then I don't care about that. But otherwise, it's like you just like spending 5,000 on just like having automate your work, and you're like, do it, do it really make sense or not? So yeah, one thing I wanted to know about you and how you have built projects is like, do it's the first project you build in solo?
No, I've built other products before. I mean, I don't like to call them products. They're more like projects that I built. Some of them I've launched, some of them are like just tiny weekend projects, and some I spend months on, I never launched. So it's not really the first product that or first thing that I built solo, but it's pretty much the first thing that I've gotten this far, if that makes sense. Like as far
Yeah,
as to launching it to a large group of people, and then going through all the process of like adding billing, ad billing, actually charging people to use it, and then getting more than a handful of people to pay for it. So first one in that regard, but not the first thing I've built.
okay, yeah. That I think that's something very important for makers. Like every first product of people is like complex because you don't know the process, you don't know many things. Like as gonna talk later about having multiple hats when you're doing in solo, then if the first project you do in solo, like you are bad at all hats, definitely bad. So it's very hard. And then with practice you improve and you get better and you are able to do something people really like, want to pay for. Uh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, no. Pretty much a lot of time and an experience goes into it. At least like a lot of people who I've talked to who are in this who are trying to do the same or who've done this and they're much further than I am. Most of these people have been building, writing code and doing different things that are like that things that are included in that umbrella term that you call hat.
Yeah.
They've been doing it for years. So nobody like at least from the people who I've met, maybe just a couple have maybe started like 2 3 years ago. Mostly have been doing this for years now. Um, which is like none of these is like an overnight thing. Nobody just woke up and I was like, hey, let me just build this thing, and then people start coming for it.
Yeah, yeah.
It all like, for example, for Logsnag, as I said, like I started learning web development back in my job. So even though I went in it with very little web experience because I'm mainly a server-side developer, I knew little. And then right before that, I was building that marketplace, which required like web development. So I also picked up a little over there. But for like for example, the backend side of it is even more complicated, and that comes from like my time working with Golang, my time working with Python, building like scalable stuff, um, all these like different things that I've did in the past that have just added up here, and I was like, able to bring in different, I don't know if calling it skill set is the right word, but
Oh,
like
it
just
works.
bringing different
Yeah.
experiences into one. Yeah. Just combining all of those and just building this thing, because had I built this as my first project, it would have been a disaster.
No, no, definitely, definitely agree with you. But that's an interesting point because it will lead us to my main question on this podcast, where I bring you here because I wanted to know like how you can become good at every hat, and I think we're like nailing the answers, like the experience on previous things where you have like had a bit of experience on everything, like for example in front end in the last project, then you were able to learn front end and not be like a zero beginner when you launch Logsnag. So it makes sense. But I really believe there are also other secrets, like since we are only one person to do business, to do one business where you're gonna do the tech, the marketing, the design, the everything, there are also how you build your task list, you know? Like if you were only the person of marketing, you will build in a way like tasks take more times and you have more time for there than when we are solo. So how you decide and like build a task, I think, to have more time.
My short answer to that is that there are a bunch of things that I'm still not good at, and things that I so if I group these skill sets that you mentioned
Mm.
into buckets, I'd say there are three buckets maybe. One are the stuff that I knew before jumping into this. One are the stuff that I learned as a like for the past year or so, because initially from January to late April, I didn't do much marketing aside from building in public, which was like, hey, I'm building this thing, share screenshots, share demos. That was kind of marketing, but then I then realized that that wasn't targeting the right audience. So didn't do marketing till like really late April.
Okay.
But then I built this a set of like skill sets during that time, and then after that time were things that I didn't know, and I started like picking them up. Those are the two different skill sets, and there are things that I have realized I'm not doing a good job of, and then I'm planning to pick up. So there's really three things that you gotta understand. And the biggest one that I didn't know was marketing and just doing the business side of things. How would you price your product?
Yeah.
How would you find the right market, right? Because there are people who would want to use this, but not everyone wants to pay for it. And no matters what you're building, right?
Yeah.
And then how do you do customer support? Because most like engineers have built products either in teams or even like solo side projects, but very rarely any of those converts to, or not that it doesn't convert to, but very rarely you have to deal with customers or business side of things, because either you're building something open source that people are just like pulling, running on their own machines, um, or just serving like a simple website or something like that. I'm not trying to downplay the kind of product. It's just that mainly we don't really think of the business side of things, which is contains those like marketing, pricing, and the customer support. So those are the things that I didn't know, and then I started picking up. And even to this date, there's a lot about it that I need to learn. And certainly there are things that I've done wrong. Like for example, pricing. Man, pricing is difficult. So one of like for example regarding pricing, one of the things I didn't know about was like I really didn't know much about like how other people did the pricing, and like I did a lot of research into it and then kind of started figuring it out. But one thing I didn't realize was that until quite late is that I'm subtracting the VAT, the VAT tax from the price that users pay me. I don't add it to the price,
Oh.
which is very dumb, because then my margins go really low based on what I'm charging, but those are not like technical or resource costs, those are just
Yeah.
taxes. So that thing I need to fix. I haven't fixed it yet. which is which makes like the value per customer kind of like 20% lower than it should be, or some percentage like that.
Yeah, it's like it's
So
very
certainly things.
variable. Like if you have someone from Dubai who doesn't pay taxes, then he's more valuable to you than another one from US or Europe. Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot like it's just like initially it's about realizing what you know and what you don't know, so you can focus more on the stuff that you don't know. Because again, so you don't make a mistake like what I made early on. From what I've learned is like no matter how much research you do, you end up making these mistakes. Like there are always things that you don't know how to do,
Of
and then you
course.
just um, yeah. So in regards to like time management, I'm actually quite bad at time management. I've been focusing on fixing that specifically because my work schedule is also really messed up. Sometimes I work till like
Yeah, we have
7 in the
talked
morning, and sometimes
sometimes late. I remember.
yeah. So that is one of the contributions. So what I do is that I have like a list of things that I want to do, but I don't really like schedule them based on. Okay, let me phrase it this way. I have in my to-do list is mainly technical stuff. So mainly like add this thing to the client,
Yeah.
or fix this thing on a back end, or redesign this part. So mainly like the technical parts of it. And then in between, I focus on marketing or customer support, or like replying to emails. So like want, which is like really shitty if you think
Yeah,
about
yeah,
it,
yeah. I
but
have
it's
the
been
same. When
working.
he's building the app, I'm like, okay, I will do a marketing task.
Yeah. And then sometimes, some days I wake up, I'm like, today I'm not gonna be a developer. So I just do like maybe design or customer outreach, or do a little marketing here and there. But yeah, that is like actually one of the things I'm trying to do better in the next couple of weeks, which is like doing better time bucketing
Yeah.
for these like non-technical tasks, because just like throw them on a to-do list, but then I only get to them when I'm not doing any technical stuff. Um, but yeah, that is something I need to fix actually, which is like I'm still struggling with how to properly manage time. But aside from that, it's just a combination of like what has the highest priority and what I feel like doing, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm totally into the what I feel like doing all the time. So marketing doesn't happen much in that. But for example, I got like a hacky way to do marketing. Like I really don't like to write articles or do things like contact mail, cold email people. So one of the marketing tasks I have now, and I do often, is building open source plugin for the community, and brand the open source plugin with the name of CapGo of the product. And because of that, I got marketing, I got SEO, and I did coding. I code, and then it produced marketing. So then it's satisfaction. Hello, cat. You're gonna be on YouTube. Are you ready? I think I don't have your mic anymore, right? Yeah.
Oh,
You're
sorry.
back.
Yeah, this is my cat. Just want to say hi. Now he's about to go. He's just gonna sit here. But yeah, like it's so what you mentioned is like focusing on different acquisition channels, and it certainly works in really interesting ways. So I talked to like different people who are doing similar things like you are. For example, one common thing is, say you're building a product regarding maybe like image processing,
Yeah.
right? So you're building a product for image processing, and think of it as like some simple screenshot service that you just like upload an image and it makes it like pretty, adds some maybe text to it, adds a background, adds shadows, and then you can just, I don't know, point arrows and stuff. For example, there are a couple of these on Twitter that I follow. I think Jim is building. Man, I'm really bad with names. I forgot what the product was called, but he's building one, and
No worry.
his
I am
marketing
very bad with name
strategy
too.
is that, or one of his marketing strategy is that, and this is aside from like the product led growth. Oh, right, one second. This is aside from the product led growth and what's included in the product, is that they go out and build these tiny tools. For example, a tiny tool for creating mesh gradient, or a tiny tool for creating like SVG
Yeah.
patterns, or creating, I don't know, color palettes, and putting them on their website. So people who search for these specific stuff, so say you're searching for SVG gradient, you find this thing, and then on the banner or something, they're like, oh, you may also want to use our screenshot tool. So that's like kind of
Mm,
advertising by
yeah.
creating side projects, which is called, I think it's called engineering as marketing on Twitter. That's what they refer to. What you mentioned as like building plugins
Oh,
so that they would bring in traffic to your product.
yeah, that do make sense. I never think about that, but yeah, I've seen that many times. Like one of the website I use the most is like to know exa color to see how it look like, and it's a product, different product, but they just made this and they bring them a lot of traffic, so it's very good for SEO. I will think about that. How I can do that for a capacitor.
Hey, I had to feed the cat. He was like
Okay.
yelling over here. So I kind of muted myself so you don't hear the dispenser because the dispenser plays this like sound in the background to like let him know that his food has been dispensed. So I didn't want that to be recorded.
Okay.
But yeah, so like um I also tried that. I built a I have two tools that I built as a engine like kind of for market acquisition. The most recent one was that Gislib. It's pretty much a pretty UI on top of OpenAI that you ask it programming questions like how do I create a for loop in JavaScript, and it gives you the snippet that you're looking for. So pretty much what ChatGPT did then in a much better way because they have unlimited resources.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so that one I built and shared on Reddit, and people would go on this thing and like play around with it, like ask how do I do this thing in JavaScript or how do I do this thing in MATLAB or C, C++. And then I just have like a small footer that says powered by Logsnag or like built by Logsnag or something. So people who search for this thing or people who share it are pretty much kind of sharing a path to the product, and that is a really valid way of doing marketing. But then on the other hand, it becomes this problem where like developers are now focusing on these side projects, and they think they're not that they think, but they're spending their time building stuff, and they think it's for marketing, but it doesn't necessarily work out all the time. So it's also like a trap that you got to be careful not to fall into.
Yeah.
You know, if like
Just be the
if you're spending
tech,
a lot
tech,
of time
tech,
on
and
these, yeah, just building, and then you think that this is again engineering as marketing, but sometimes it just doesn't work that way, and you got
it's
to
just
focus
having
on
fun as
actually.
as engineering.
Yeah, there are a couple of these that I have on my to-do list that I want to build, and there's this like one that is way on top, and I think a lot of people would have a use for, but I've been stopping myself from falling into that trap because I know it's gonna take me like a week or so to build it the way I
Yeah.
want to, and I my backlog for Logsnag is really long right now.
Yes. Because it's an
Yeah,
amazing project and you
so
have a lot of feedback, Jude. So that's normal.
oh yeah, the feedback, and then the problem with it is that it's growing really big, and now like I'm to the point that it's funny. I never thought I would get to this point as an indie, but I'm writing like design docs when I want to implement something new, which is kind of dumb. when so I'm like I open up a note and I start like writing down my design decisions, and I'm like comparing different designs and just like getting really formal about it, which is a new milestone for me because before this I was like I need to implement this, I'll just jump into the code and start
Yeah.
implementing it. Now it's like design process, give it 3 days to think about it, and then come up with two new ways, add those, give it another 3 days, send it to a bunch of customers, ask what they think, come back, think about it again, and then finally implement it. So it's getting really interesting.
Yeah, but I believe like that's a normal path. I start to feel it myself also because like if you implement too fast, then there are some customers say, "Hey, it doesn't work for me," and you're like, "Oh shit, why I did that?" And now others use it, so you're like, "Ah, so what I'm doing? I'm developing two different features for two different kind of users." So yeah, I totally understand the point. Like also more and more I go and grow with Cap Go, and it's making rhythm. And less I'm like pushing in production fast. Before I was pushing in production every day, and now I start to push less than every day because I want to think, I want to be sure, I want to have more tests. So I'm making the things harder. I don't know. You have tests, automatic tests?
Yeah, it's not 100% coverage because I have a lot of code.
Yeah.
But every like important thing that's in the product, like everything that's not hey, an API endpoint for pulling my profile account. Everything that is not like that's not it.
Or product
Am I making sense? Like everything important that has like critical
impact.
that does a critical thing in regards to the business. For example, the entire API ingestion pipeline that is end-to-end tested, right?
Yeah.
To make sure that no log is dropped or nothing is dropped, say like the database goes down or like something in the middle goes down. But then everything that has a secondary priority or like a lower priority, for example, fetching my profile account or like maybe my settings, those are not good to go down, but they're not as important if they do right now.
Yeah, yeah.
So those are the stuff that I don't really test.
Of
Yeah,
course, makes sense. But that's come.
I test them in production maybe.
Yeah, I have also test in production. Not, I have only test in production right now because I've seen like since I am using Supabase, like setting the test environment is a bit like annoying. So I have at one point I was like the easiest things to have kind of testing. For now it's in production already end to end. So that's what I did. And this is connected to the status page, so the users can know if there's something wrong. So they don't need to ask me something is broken because they can see it. And that's also something. Do you have automatization for the support? And because for me it takes a lot of time to answer to people.
Yeah, no, same here. And that's been something that I need to come up with a way to like handle because Locksnack has a freemium plan, meaning that I have a lot of users on the free plan.
Ooh, yeah.
So the number of emails that I get or the number of DMs that I get on Twitter is significant. Another problem is that it's like scattered across different channels. Like I get emails, I get Discord messages, and I get Twitter DMs, and it's getting really out of hand. And I need to kind of like automate maybe like people who DM me and send them say like, hey, can you email me about this if I don't get back to you,
Yeah.
or maybe send everyone to Discord. Mm, no, I don't think sending everyone to Discord is a good idea. But yeah, it's becoming quite problematic, and I need to find a way to fix it. Really.
Makes sense.
Do you have? And you said you don't have any automation, no?
No, I'm using Crisp as a chat and support platform, and I connect a maximum of channel on it. So lately I was checking how I can connect Discord, for example, on it, and my Twitter to have everything redirect to that, and then I can handle that. And at one point, have someone to help me doing it. But yeah, everything going Crisp right now, and from Crisp I have access to, for example, you can send to Crisp to the API like some user data from the users. For example, I send the user ID with a link. I have built a link to impersonate the user. So I have put that in Crisp, and so when a user asks me, my page doesn't work, so I can just click on his profile on Crisp and directly open it, the link to see his account. So that's kind of automation I've made. And other automation I've made is more about email. When they have an error, for example, in the update to the app doesn't work, I send an email say, it didn't work, and you can check on here why it doesn't work. You can have a blog article about that, and the documentation talking about it, to try to prevent them to contact me. I don't understand, it doesn't work. So that's where I try to automate things. Yeah, mainly on Crisp. I put everything on this platform.
I didn't know you could. I have Crisp on the web version of Logsnack,
Yeah.
and I've limited to people who've logged in, not on the landing page, which I think I should add. But I didn't know that you could connect your Twitter account to it. Did I hear that right? Just so you can like connect Twitter and then send DMs through Crisp. Is that what he meant?
Yeah. You can connect a lot of different field into Crisp. They have a lot of integration. The problem sometimes it's paid integration. But yeah, they have many way of getting the Twitter DM. They have even Instagram DM, and
Wow, I had no idea about it. I may connect my Twitter. So the problem is I get a lot of like people messaging me on my personal Twitter, and some of it is just friends, and some of it is like customer support, and then now there's a lot of spam. people trying to sell me bitcoins.
Yeah, I have that a lot too.
Um, so I don't know if like adding that to Crisp would make it easier.
What?
I think the better thing is just tell people to not DM me about Logsnag on Twitter because I may get back to them like later than I would if they were messaging me. Sorry, if they had been messaging me on either Discord or Crisp. But yeah, I need to automate that. Again, I have a long list of things that I need to
Yeah.
get to and fix this year,
Well, for Twitter, I think what you can do, it's easy. It's to disable people send you a message if you don't follow them, and then put the chat box of Crisp visible, even log out of Logsnag. Then people will naturally use the only tool available.
yeah, that's true. The problem, I don't think closing the DMs right now it would be a good idea because I get a lot of interesting DMs.
Yeah.
I don't want to close that via people reaching out to me. But yeah, again, I think adding Crisp to the landing page would solve a some portion of that, and then just maybe an auto reply on Twitter DMs, be like, hey, if I don't get back to you, or hey, if this is important, just reach out to me via this method because it's faster or more efficient.
Yeah.
Something like that, I think, would be a better alternative at least for here, instead of just closing all the DMs. But yeah, I still have like messages in my Twitter from a few days ago that I haven't replied back to, which is really bad.
Yeah, I totally understand you. It's very complex to do that, especially when you're solo. Like you cannot be perfect on every field. So it's very complex. Mm. I am wondering, like, because you were talking about the process of designing, like technically, but I was wondering on the design of the UI of your app. You do Figma stuff, or you design directly in coding?
No, I use Figma. My design process is I have an idea of what I want to build, right? So let's
Yeah.
say right now the landing page. I'm redesigning the whole like marketing website. So every blog, every use case, every like SEO content, the playground, everything is being redesigned right now. I've been doing that for the past 3 weeks, and it's been a pain, massive pain.
So it's still not finished.
But the thing is, no,
Uh,
the last thing is the playground. I've been designing a playground for the
yeah.
past 2 days over the weekend, but I'm still not finished with how I want it to look like
Okay.
because I'll get into the playground. But the thing is, I throw it up on Figma what I want. I start with like wireframing. Hey, there should be a box over here. Or there should be like a nav bar here, and then I just like go on building iteration after iteration, and I like build or design like 30 different versions of one thing. Okay, not entirely different, but like I design it and then duplicate it and then go change it and then duplicate and change it until like I'm happy. And then I start implementing it, and within 3 days I'm like, I don't like this anymore.
Oh no.
But
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, the entire design process on Figma, it's much faster than designing with code. Designing with code just doesn't make much sense to me because I can just drag and drop something on Figma, but then in code you gotta like change, I don't know, 20 lines of code to make something look differently, and then you don't like it, now you gotta delete it and start from scratch.
Yeah.
So design on Figma, I view it on like different devices. So I design it on Figma, and then I have like my phone open, I have a simulator open, and then I have like a browser open, and you can preview what you're designing as you're designing it. So that way I try to like mess around with it that way, but it's just like I start tweaking things until they look right to me. I don't like follow any design patterns or any UI kits, or there's a word for it, or any, what was the thing? What is the design?
Trends?
No, not trends. There's a crap. I don't remember. But yeah, just pretty much put stuff up there, start like tweaking it, and then one thing I've been doing quite a lot is that I put up my designs on Twitter before implementing them, and I get tons of feedback, which is amazing. So one thing amazing about Twitter is that I have like, which is nuts if you think about it. I have like people who are like lead designers at big companies, Twitter, GitHub, all these big companies, Google even, are friends with me or like following. And then if I put a design up, I get like legit feedback from people who are really good at what they do, and it's amazing. So I'm like, For example, the landing page, before implementing it, I think I've posted three different versions of the landing page, kind of doing A/B tests, to see which one gets more eyes, which one gets more clicks,
Yeah.
and then also using the feedback that the people put in the replies as kind of like things that I have to do. So, for example, I remember the first landing page redesign got like 800 likes. I was like, holy shit,
Wow.
this is a lot. And then I went back, changed a couple of things, and then the second one I think got 400 maybe.
Okay.
And I was like, I did something wrong. Let's go back and change it. The third one got 1500. I was
Wow.
like, okay, this is yeah. So the third one was like, okay, this is the right path. And then even like I also measure like how many people end up signing up after posting these,
Yeah.
which tells me like they've seen it on this post on Twitter. It has piqued their interest, and maybe they realize okay they want to use it just from the hero section of the picture that I posted, and then they go and sign up. So this last one, for example, had a high conversion rate, very high conversion rate, and then I just based my design off of that, and I took all the comments and people who messaged me. It's funny, like I post a tweet and people like DM me with feedback, and then apply that to the design, and then finally when I'm like happy with it, I go and implement it. So it's like a collaborative process
Yeah,
of
that's cool.
not me designing, but like a bunch of people helping me design, which is awesome.
I never think about that. I think for me, I should first be confident with my design and really like what I'm doing, because for now I feel like I'm doing shit, so I'm doing fast and then I do something else. And mainly the good design I have, it's or I have used templates or I've paid a freelancer to help me. Um,
You paid for who?
a freelancer, like someone.
Oh, wait, really?
Yeah.
Which? Let me open it up. Which part of it? Is it your landing page or something?
No, it's the web app. The web app dashboard is made by the freelancer. He was a
Mm.
guy who contacted me on LinkedIn because he listened to my French podcast and he wanted to do an internship. So he did an internship and it was very good. So after that, I employ him as a freelancer, and he will continue to work on it in January on the web app because he did a very good job.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Nice. You're also you're employing people now.
A bit. That's
That
the ambition, by the way. To be in open source, I want to let people participate on the task. They say on GitHub, I do it, and then I sponsor them. So
your landing pages. There are a couple of things that you can change here. I can let you know after this. But it's I just pulled it up here because it's been like maybe a couple of weeks since I looked at it, but I never looked at it as like a design perspective. I looked at it as a content perspective. The content's great. It just tells me everything I need to know about it. But does it also have like a dark mode and light
no,
mode?
only
It's just
dark.
light.
For me, there are no option. Or dark mode or dark mode. Oh yeah.
But yeah, no. That is pretty much the design process for me. I'll get back to you on the design thing here. We can go roast your landing page sometime.
Yeah, we can do that
But yeah,
another time. It's pretty good. Um,
yeah. So
yeah.
again, to sum it up, Figma, bunch of iterations, send it to people, ask their feedback. That could include like DMing people. That could be sending maybe like preview links to people, or even posting screenshots on Twitter. Get the feedback, and then and measure things like how much engagement is causing. And engagement could be bad or could be good. Like if your design is really bad, people would like to come into replies and be like, hey, this is utter garbage. So that doesn't just necessarily high engagement mean that your design is good.
Yeah.
And then take the feedback. Sometimes the feedback is not really great, right? It's just like, because again, design is subjective. Some people just don't like it. Or sometimes you're not targeting that kind of user, and just make more iterations and end up putting it like on a product the landing page. That is kind of my process right now. But I've done this like throughout time, so it's mainly a practice For example, like I just go on Dribble, look at people designing stuff. I'm really critical of, well, not critical, but I look at like different websites and focus on their design rather than the content, which a lot of people do. You just go open a website and just like read stuff. You don't really
Yeah,
look for the design. Specifically, when the design's really good, it gets out of your way. Um, that just like it's a good exercise for picking those stuff up. For example, websites like Apple. Apple has a very nice design if you look into the
yeah,
different pages. Except those scroll animations. I hate those scroll
I agree,
animations.
agree.
But they're like, yeah, but they break down content, and then they focus on like what's important because they know people are lazy to read entire paragraphs. Or the new like the new trend in like the whole landing page design, for example, Linear has done a whole redesign. Who else has done a redesign? Planet Skill has done a redesign, and most of these have really good ideas. You can always take inspiration from these
Yeah,
ideas, but I mean, not copy those, but just see, okay, they're using a lot of white space here, and then they're using these tricks to focus on specific elements that they want the user to focus on, and it just like over time these just add up, and you don't have to be like a designer to kind of understand how to make something look good, if that makes sense.
it depends for which developer you're talking to, huh? I've
No.
I've seen like I'm not the only one who is struggling in design, for example, and having very like not the eye for that. I think you need to very like go on the subject and try to understand like what is a good design, why you like it, why you are able to read it, why like that's catch your eyes. And that things when you are like not interested in the subject, like you don't get it. It's like imagine you go to a big wine yard or something, because I'm French, so I talk about wine, of course. And you try the most expensive wine from the vineyard, and you will don't see the difference. Even everyone tell you that's the best one, you are not educated for that, so you don't understand it even very well. You see what I mean?
Oh, for sure. I don't think every engineer should learn design. I think everyone should learn to a degree because it's really
Yeah.
important. Like it even helps you with like writing code, right? It I don't know if I'm trying to phrase this properly, but it teaches you how to like write cleaner code to some degree, if that makes sense, or even like present your code or present your ideas. Because everyone, like even engineers, end up building slides and end up building like presentations of their ideas in one way or another,
Yeah.
and it it plays a significant role if you know how to present ideas in a better way. You don't have to go and design landing pages, you don't have to go and design mobile apps, but then just knowing like the basics of color, for example. Don't put green on top of a red background. That's not a good
Don't burn
idea.
the eyes of people.
Or yeah, and like understand the hierarchy of text, right? Like people start reading from usually top and the biggest element to the smallest one to the bottom, right? And if you mess up with that hierarchy, it's not like it makes the scanning process more difficult, meaning that people are now have to like put their brain power into figuring out what to read and how to read instead of the content that
Yeah.
you're presenting. So I feel like even like as is like a really basics of typography, color, and like spacing. You know what I'm saying? Like even those basics can can significantly better your presentations. Now, whatever they are, it doesn't have to be like a fully fledged landing page design or a product design. But I feel like to that degree, it's important in our field, in almost every field, right? I've had professors back in college who would put these slides together that I couldn't for the life of me read.
Yeah.
Like again,
You're like,
green on
ah.
red background, and it just sticks out to me because I'm trying to focus and like the material is already annoying as hell. And then I have to like zoom in and then get really close and then do random stuff to be able to read this thing. It makes it really annoying. So yeah, like very basics of it are stuff that everyone I think should pick up to some degree because it's really helpful in different um in almost anything, like anytime you want to visualize something or you want to present some idea, because all of us end up presenting ideas, right? Um, at least to that, the very basics of it is really useful. And then if it's something that you're interested in, which I understand a lot of people are not interested in, it's just something that comes with practice from my experience.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That's something I've seen which have helped me a lot. It's like when you try to share something to make people understand, to sell what you're doing, it's like sometimes you want to explain a lot about how it's made, or you get, too complex into the subject. And what I've felt it is very useful in sometimes like try to, as a, the rule on presentation is like one subject, one thing is presenting, not too many words, like not long sentences. So kind of do a simple presentation as a 3 years old could read it. And if you think like that, it can help you to have something at least usable. It's not like the best beautiful things you're gonna share to your users, but at least they will understand what you want to say. That's the minimum you can do.
Yeah, and I think design is something specifically in developer tools. So you're building a developer
Yeah.
tool. I'm building a developer tool to some degree. Non-developers can use Logsnack, and I have people who are not developers using it. Like for example, the no-code builders or business people or like marketing people who want to just like use this data. But specifically in the dev tools, it's something that is quite undervalued or something that people don't really put too much attention on. So if you go look at like the whole general like main dev tools like analytics tools, logging tools, um, even IDEs, to some degree you can see that these tools are designed by engineers, not by designers. And engineers like are not necessarily good at design.
Yeah.
That's why like we have like complicated UIs. We have UIs with like tons of options. You get all these buttons all over the place and you don't know how they work.
AWS dashboard.
And yeah, like that is one of the things. Like for example, I also go to Cloudflare. I use Cloudflare and they're much better than AWS, but now they have too many options going on and it's like really confusing to use. And that is like one of the issues. And with Logsnack, that's been something that I've been trying to do differently, even though it's something that gives you a lot of power, specifically with what's being added to it right now. But every part of it, I try to make as simple as possible while maintaining that power in there, right? You can still customize it if you're a power user. But for me, most users don't really care about having 20 options. It does nothing by other than confusing them and moving their focus from what's important. Like if you're looking at analytics or looking at the charts, you don't want to look at 200 buttons right at the same time.
Yeah.
And that is something that I've seen lacking in this market. And now I'm seeing products that are coming out, like new startups, that are now realizing, okay, we could differentiate entirely in this market just by having a better user experience or just by having a better UI. And I'm not saying that's their only moat or that's the only selling point, but that is one of the biggest factors. For example, with Logsnag, I get a lot of emails right now, users asking, hey, I'm using Mixpanel, I'm using Google Analytics. Even though I know Logsnag is not built for this, it has an entirely different use case.
Yeah.
But I would love to pay more or buy an add-on that would let me to do like these kinds of analytics or track my web usage, just because those tools are really confusing and I don't know how to use them. They just like,
Yeah. That's crazy.
yeah, I get a lot of that these days. They're like, hey, can you let me like track this certain thing that Logsnag is not designed for, because the tool that's available for it just doesn't work, or it's I don't know how to use it and stuff like that. And that's where I realized that okay, a lot of these markets, specifically like email is one that I talk about a lot. Most email tools are confusing as hell. Like even as a developer, I find it really confusing to go in, set up the DNS stuff, configure the email flow, the drip,
Yeah.
whatever thing is called, build the templates and make sure it's like being sent properly. All of those is like super confusing because these businesses try to cover every user, and once you try to cover every user, then it's not built for any user. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So for example, if you're trying to cover the 10% power users, then you're adding a lot of stuff that the other 90% are not going to be able to know how to use. And then if you're building for the lower 90%, shit, I lost my train of thought. My point was that if you focus on either one of these sections, you can build a product specifically for them, and they would know much better how to use them. But once you try to cover all of these people, then you build a product that is really hard to use for both of these groups of people.
Yeah. That's what I like with makers. It's like most of makers choose a niche, and by choosing a niche, if they are keeping like not wanting a million of money, they will just do a fabulous product because they are like specific on the niche. And I really like, for example, for emailing, I have definitely this experience. I dislike every platform I have used. So I have decided to don't use emailing platform. I am using the email feature of Crisp, which is way more better design and simple than any other tool I have seen. So I have choose to use like the marketing automation in Crisp because I didn't want a stupid like product who can do thousands of things where I just want to send emails, 4 emails in my platform because I don't like emails. and, and yeah, I totally understand your point. And sometimes I've been disappointed by tools who are like very good and niche, and at one point they become very big and they decide to open the niche like bigger and wider, and then the product gets shit. It's like not good as it was before.
Yeah, that is definitely a common problem. So with like for example, in my case, um, I have tons of features built into Logsnack that are not they're working for me.
Yeah.
They're not public for users. Um, and that is mainly because I'm not happy with how they look or how they function, and I'm not yet like ready to make them public. And that is that it's mainly for the same purpose. And what we talked about before, is it a use case that most people want to use, or is it like targeted towards like 10% of my users? Second, is it something that people are want to use, and is it well designed to like some standard that I have for the product, or is it something that trying to it's hard to kind of turn these thoughts into words.
No.
But
I,
pretty much along those lines of like not being 100% happy with some feature and just stopping myself from like publishing them until I'm either happy or just disregard them entirely.
Okay, yeah, it do make sense. I tend to don't have a lot of feature in CapGo, for example, so everything for me is released. But sometimes what I'm doing, it's I postpone the documentation, and then only when people ask the problem, I tell them, that's it, this is just undocumented, that's all you can do to have feedbacks. But yeah, otherwise most of the things are. I'm more using I don't know if you know the Shape Up from DDH, the guy from Basecamp A. They wrote a kind of ebook about their methodology, what they call Shape Up. It's like they design something like the base of a design of some things, and they start to use it like that, even it's not finished, don't look finished, to be able to have feedbacks and to know fast if they need to drop it or not. So that's a bit like what you're doing, but with yourself. And I like to do that more publicly, and I push something. I don't know if it will work for everyone. It's not really finished to be usable. It's not the best design, but I get feedback, and then I know if I have to drop it or not. Like lately, I did that for in CapGo. The people are using CapGo. Each time a new user get a new update, that's increase the total user base, and the limit is based on that. And I got many feedbacks about people having CI/CD or developers using a lot the usage, making the usage get bigger because that's developers and that's during the development phase. And people were a bit unhappy about that. So I decided to have a try and see if I can filter that for users. So I ship it, but it was not completely finished. Some statistics don't count that, some others yes. And then I saw like it's mainly getting to a more disaster, because if I start to don't count certain of data, where while the data are sent by the device, I will have like to check if people are not cheating and stuff like that. So I will roll back and say, okay, no, sorry, everyone gonna be counted, because I cannot do that. I will like make my life simpler, and I don't want to maintain like a complex pipeline of filtering the data. It's like all your data, all is counted, and maybe later it will be different. But so yeah, that's the shape up idea, and yeah, and you're doing that also with yourself, which is fun because you are your first user.
Yeah, there are a couple of reasons why I cannot like just push these out to users is because removing features is kind of hard once people get used to using it, right? Because you release like a idea or something that you're experimenting with, and some users, and you like release it to 10% of the users, and they start using it really like quite a lot. And now removing it is kind of hard if they really like the idea, right? Which means you should continue working on it, but then maybe like only 10% are using it a lot, and then the other 90% don't really care about it. Now you have to maintain another feature and potentially implement backwards compatibility for like the previous version as you're implementing or changing things. So like as things start growing, it gets quite difficult. And that's why one of the reasons I'm like being really critical about like, hey, what do I release further than just using for myself?
Yeah.
And then right, like once I'm happy with it to that regards, and then I then start like A/B testing it or releasing to some sort of people, and then growing it further. It's just like I guess the more crazy ideas is what I keep from releasing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like things that are significantly new rather than just like minor patches or like, hey, let's change how this thing is working. Rather,
Ah, so you're
it.
talking about the idea you told me like in message, like I have a crazy idea, and then I didn't saw it, so it's like it was too crazy to share it.
There again, yeah, there are a couple of things like this that I haven't published. They're ready to go. I just need to push the build out or merge the
Yeah.
branch so that it's now available for everyone, not just my development environment. But yeah, it's like some of these change the direction of a product if you think about it, right? Specifically, when like for my product, it's relatively generic in terms of that you can use it for a lot of different purposes. So I got to be really critical about each thing that I'm adding because it could push it towards a specific direction, if that makes sense.
Mm. Yeah.
Um,
I
you know what I'm saying? I can add like there are certain features that I can add, and it would kind of reshape the how the product
Yeah, like if you do
should be.
feature like look like Mixpanel or feature like Mixpanel does, then you're gonna be a clone of Mixpanel instead of more generic tool.
Not that. No, I'm not saying that. No. So there's sides to it that can expand. For example, analytics side of Locksnag is going to expand very soon. People want to do more with their data, and that is going to be soon available. So then you can create different charts or put maybe alerts on top of it, and and do more dynamic analytics. That doesn't mean it has anything to do with like with Mixpanel. But then I'm saying if I add like what is a good example here that I can tell you without spilling beans about what I'm building?
It's fine, it's a podcast. You will not be public so much.
That's what I'm saying. So like if I add maybe something that is used for like that is commonly wanted for people who are building mobile apps,
Yeah.
right? Maybe that's a better way of putting it. If I add a feature that is targeted for people who are building mobile apps, now it's going to go into this direction of mobile app analytics rather than what it is right now. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So depending on like the stuff you keep on adding, it could really change the perception of the product and what it does. For example, if you build a bunch of integrations with like almost every tool, now you're like competing with Zapier. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? It's kind of tricky. So that's why I've been like very careful about what I put out there. I don't want to change the path. Okay, not that I don't want to change the path, I don't want a specific add-on to change the path without me being certain of it.
Yeah, it's like
And I want
you
it to
want
be
to do
something
that
that could be used.
consciously and not like, oh, fuck, I
Exactly,
become that. Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, it do make sense.
Yeah, that, and also um, the problem with like how things start to get bloated is when you build features that only 10% of the people use. Because if you think about like you have 20 different features and each one only 10% use, and these 10% are not necessarily the same 10%, now you have a bloated product, and everyone who wants to use this product, maybe you have 20 offering and they only use 5 of it. Now the thing is entirely bloated because they cannot use the other 15, or they don't have a use case for it. So it's just sitting there in their face, and it just makes everything really confusing. That's why I've been trying to like make sure whatever I add is covering the majority of our users right now.
Yeah.
At least for now, that is like the idea.
And how you get sure about that? Like you go to ask people, or what's your process to be sure like you're not targeting 10%?
So I right now I build stuff based on the number of requests that I get mainly. There are crazy stuff that I come up with, but those are not necessarily requested. That's why I don't publish them.
Okay.
But then I keep track of the feedback that I get. And I mainly build them based on the number of recurring requests that I get for something. For example, one of the recurring requests that I'm getting right now is for people to be able to import historical data. So right now, whatever you import to Logsnag is tagged by the time you send it to us. But a lot of people are asking, okay, can I import like the past year worth of data so I can populate those user journeys, or I can populate the charts. That is something that I've gotten a lot of requests for. So I'm like, that is literally up on my to-do list for next year, or sorry, next couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's a
Next year
big one.
sounds like a long time from now. Yeah, that is going to be really, it's going to be really helpful for people who want to migrate to Logsnag.
Yeah.
If you have your data into some other tool, you don't want to start like from today, but you want to be able to like import everything that you have had in the past. That is one thing. Another thing is, what was it? I forgot. Oh, another thing is webhooks. Being able to like, being able to forward any webhook to Logsnag and then kind of describe the template of that webhook. So now you can have any sort of tool send events to Logsnag without you having to create an integration, or without me having to create an official integration, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
For example, if you're using Stripe, or using some sort of like Tally or some sort of form tool, most of these have outgoing webhooks for when you get an event. But the problem with webhook is that they are, first of all, everyone has their own schema. There is no proper standard. So pretty much accepting those, mapping it to how a log looks in Logsnag in an easy way, and then pushing it to users is something that I've gotten a lot of requests for, and it's something that's definitely gonna come soon. So pretty much like prioritizing these feedback based on the number of occurrences, and based on how commonly it could be used, if that makes sense. And I don't have a proper like policy for it. There is no proper math or process that I go through to do this. It's just based on talking to a lot of customers and knowing what they use Logsnag for, and whether they could also use this, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. It does. I understand the process. Do you have you say you wrote it somewhere, so you have a notion or something, or you keep track of that?
Apple Notes. I tried using these different the different productivity tools.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's just I never got into like the habit of really using one. For example, I started giving Linear a try 2 weeks ago, but then it just wasn't worth it for me. Like the overhead is not much. It's not worth like a solo dev, at least where I am. I just like to write my stuff down on a paper or on Apple Notes, and then put a bunch of like information right next to it for me to remember. But I don't need like a productivity tool to help me like structure these right now, because I'm a single like developer.
Yeah.
But maybe I'm just not doing a good job of using that. It could also be entirely me.
No. I think For me, I totally agree with the fact like I cannot have a complex pipeline, you know, like I just went to linear website and I'm like too complex, you know, I need something simple. So what I do right now, it's since I'm open source, is like everything is based on a GitHub issue. When I think about it,
Hmm.
if I cannot do a task straight away, I put it in GitHub issue. If I do it straight away, just don't write it somewhere, and I'm just working on it. So I keep this organization as simple as possible because I truly believe more you are having organization things like productivity, like what is supposed to be productivity as a solo maker, it's unproductive because you're not building, you're not selling, you're not marketing, contacting people. So that's tasks who maybe are good for the long run, but for me they don't provide value. So I tend to have as less as possible of them and have simple pipeline. Does it make sense?
Yeah, at the end of it, it's just like mainly what works.
Yeah.
And for me, it's just simple like text. I can do everything in a text-based file. For now, it's been sufficient.
Mhm. Yeah, it make totally sense for me. And that was the part of the question is like globally how you organize yourself to be sure like you have space for doing everything, and that's keeping like your system simple. I think this is the biggest part of the iceberg. Then if you want to be a solo maker is have a simple system to have the space to do the important things and be sure you're not like losing your day like by overthinking about what you're doing instead of just doing it.
But yeah,
Yeah.
no, that makes sense. I'll definitely let you know if I switch to another productivity tool that made it easier for me to do things.
Yeah.
um, hey, I was just checking. I got a meeting coming up in 10 minutes.
Yeah,
So
we are fine.
if you don't
We
mind,
are, yeah, we can be done right now. It's 1 hour 20. We did good job. I think we talk about the question. It was great. Um, Thank you a lot for your time.
hey, thank you very much. This is fun. I'm trying to do better with these podcasts. I'm definitely not good at them yet. So if you end up let me watch this once it's out, and then I'll practice a little more. Well, not practice, but see what I did, what I could do better, and then we can go for round two whenever you're ready.
Yeah, of course. But I don't believe in that. I don't believe you are like not so good. It's like it's a conversation. You are yourself, and being yourself, usually you do a great job.
Thank you. But hey, no, this was fun. I'm glad we it's also interesting. We never had a meeting before. We should do that more often,
Yeah,
man.
yeah, that's
Um,
something we should
and
do. Usually, my the podcast is my excuse to meet people, and then I meet more often them. It's like
I have office hours for that. I have this like Calendly link for what is it called for Logsnack office hours,
okay.
and then it's supposed to be for like people who want to use Logsnack and they have questions or whatnot. But then I just get them like for a bunch of different purposes, and they're like very fun. So you should give that a try. Just put up like if you have time, put up a calendar link, maybe like 1 day a week, and then you start getting like a bunch of people scheduling
Oh,
them. Like I think I have another one tomorrow, and I have one coming up right after this, and it's fun. Sometimes people want to like talk about their product and see how they can use yours, or they have questions. Sometimes you get like annoying people who just like schedule stuff and never show up. That's really annoying.
yeah, yeah.
But aside from that, I've had really good experience with it. So it's something that I highly suggest if you have the time.
Okay, I will do that just after our call. Then, thanks for that, man.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But hey, thank you very much. Oh, it's also night over there. I totally forgot. You have a good night, man.
Yeah, it's 23, almost midnight on my side. So I will work a bit and then I will go to sleep. But thanks a lot for
Yeah, set
that.
up that Calendly.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I would say also thank you for the listener. It was cool to have you here. And if you have liked this podcast, you can send love to Shayan on Twitter. This is very cool to have feedbacks, like it was useful for people. You can also, for me, give me feedback on Twitter either. I think that's the best platform for me working for that. And I tell you, like, see you next week. Bye.
Yep. Thank you very much. Talk to you later. Goodbye.